Good afternoon, and thanks for having us in. Sioux Falls Police are warning residents of an increase in scam calls. Police say two common scams are someone claiming to be with law enforcement, while another is alleged sweepstakes calls. Police encourage you, if you feel that something is wrong, to hang up and call them. You should also verify the scammer's claims before ever giving money. This midday, we also have an update on what was reported as a car versus pedestrian crash last night in downtown Sioux Falls. After investigating and talking with witnesses, police discovered that no vehicle was involved in the incident. Police said the victim was intoxicated and simply fell in the street. Police in Worthington are asking for the public's help in finding a missing woman. Officials say she last had contact with someone at about 1:20 Saturday morning. If you have any information on where she may be, you're asked to call the Worthington Police Department. Turning now to a first look at weather. It's going to be warming up before too long. Also, though, we do have some chilly temps in the near future, don't we, as well, Adam?
Yeah, it's basically going to be a case of don't get used to anything over the next couple of days, whether it's good, which is what we have through Wednesday, or not so good, to put it lightly, and that'll be later on this week. But we'll take the good as we get it. Like right now, for example, outside in Pierre, that is a gorgeous view of the Capitol, beautiful blue sky above, 38 in Hughes County with a southeast wind at 13 miles per hour. Not as windy in Pierre as it is at, say, Great Bear, for example. The groomers getting ready for another day of skiing. It's been a fantastic season. 28 at the airport with a south wind sustained at 25 miles per hour. Notice that southerly and southwesterly flow over toward Winter, Valentine, Pine Ridge, and Custer. That's helping get the temperature into the 40s, or you could be an overachiever like Spearfish and be at 55 right now. Compare that to the 27 in Aberdeen, 17 for Sisseton, 18 in Ortonville. Not as bad in Mitchell and Yankton. You guys are both right at 32. But take a look at the divide along the river. West River, winds are generally calm beyond Custer. To the east, however, it is an entirely different story with sustained winds out of the south at 15 to 30 miles per hour. Beyond the wind, there isn't a whole lot to complain about today. A little bit of fair weather cloud cover now and again, but, you know, could always be worse. Could be New England. They're dealing with another late season winter storm. A bit of a late start to snow out that way, considering just how bad it was December through February over there. They could barely get below freezing at times, let alone get any snow. A far cry compared to what we had over here. And speaking of colder temperatures, unfortunately, as we go through and beyond the 7-day forecast, in general, odds for below average temperatures are favored. Now, keep in mind, by the first day of spring, which is next Monday, average in Sioux Falls, for example, is 47. So is it going to be as frigid as what we've seen in, say, December or January? No. But as we get to the 7-day forecast a little bit later on, it is still going to get pretty cold by March standards all the same. We'll talk about that coming up.
Thank you, Adam. Health officials are trying to figure out what is behind a Listeria outbreak that left people sick across the country. Listeria is a bacteria that can cause the serious infection and common food poisoning symptoms. The CDC says around 1,600 people get listeriosis every year, resulting in about 260 deaths. Health officials are still trying to determine the exact source of the infections. Today is Equal Pay Day, a date that the U.S. marks to symbolize how far into the year the average woman must work in order to have earned what the average man had earned the entire previous year. According to the American Association of University Women, full-time women workers make 84% of what men with full-time jobs are paid on average. That gap is even greater for women of color. President Joe Biden is going to discuss his efforts to reduce gun violence during a visit to Monterey Park, California today. That's where 11 people died when a gunman opened fire at a Lunar New Year celebration. Last year, Congress passed major gun control legislation for the first time in 30 years, following several high-profile mass shootings, including at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. According to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been more than 100 mass shootings this year. Shareholders of Silicon Valley Bank have filed a class action suit following the bank's collapse. It was one of two banks, along with New York's Signature Bank, regulators took over this past weekend. Shockwaves caused traders to dump shares of more than a dozen other regional banks yesterday. Federal officials say they plan to try to auction off what's left of SVB. Skylar Henry reports from Washington.
The stock market held steady Tuesday morning. The Dow Jones opened higher as jitters caused by the failure of two major banks seems to be easing. On Monday, trading halted for more than a dozen other regional banks after steep drops. It was fallout from the collapse of California-based Silicon Valley Bank and the closure of New York's Signature Bank. President Biden tried to reassure Americans.
Our banking system is safe. Your deposits are safe.
We were pretty worried.
Sam Ling is the CEO of a software startup that had millions in deposits with SVB. He praised the administration's decision to guarantee all deposits, even those that exceeded the $250,000 limit.
Definitely very assuring. I think the government this time moved really fast.
President Biden said he intends to ask Congress and regulators to strengthen the rules for banks to help stave off future failures.
No bank holds enough cash that when all the depositors want their money back simultaneously, they don't have it.
Gary Cohn, the top economic advisor in the Trump administration, appeared on CBS Mornings. He says these situations are why the FDIC insures deposits.
The reason FDIC insurance was created is to protect your mom and my dad, to make them feel comfortable to leave their money in a bank knowing it's secure.
The White House stressed that executives and investors for both banks will not be bailed out. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Washington.
CBS News has learned Silicon Valley Bank was operating without a chief risk officer for months before one was hired in January.